the last tutorial about the pickup objects, grab objects. I forgot to mention there's another way you can do the pickup objects, not necessarily create a new actor, but actually just using the grab component, and you can use it directly into the as a static mesh. So here, for example, if I use this grab component, I want to apply this to this static mesh, which is instance, right? So my last tutorial I covered you have to create an actor, you have to make this in actor, then you attach this inside actor. In fact, you can just simply drag and drop into this hierarchy under the static mesh. So any instance in the level, if you really click the details, you can see this is a component. I'll be using this one as example. This is called static mesh, right, which is instance. In order to make this one be able to pick it up, you can drag and drop this grab component underneath. So you create this kind of same hierarchy. But this is not really an actor, it's just a static mesh. And also make sure you click this static mesh, right? And you have to make sure this one is a movable objects, and you have to make sure let me just make the screen a little bit higher. You have to make sure this one is be able to simulate the collision. So here I will generate overlapping events, and collision preset I will use the physics actor. So this is the correct setting for it. Then I think for the collision, I will also check the simulate physics because I want this one be able to drop down. Okay, so this is the settings here. So after that, we can do a test. So here's a headset. I'm able to run this as a standalone, and I will play. Right. And then I'm using my force. I will use my right button, right hand, right here. I cannot see my hand. Okay, here we go. So yeah, I see my hand. I can go ahead, navigate to this guy, and then I will overlap. So I'm able to pick it up and drop. Right, physics, same thing for this. Pick it up and drop. Right, that's super cool. All right. So that's how you exit. You probably give me that warning again. Close without sending. So this is how you grab a component, just directly attach into the hierarchy. This is the easiest way. You don't have to really go into the actors. Just make sure objects has to be, collision. You have to set up, simulate physics, and then you have to trigger the overlapping events, and you have to set up this collision preset to physics. Okay, I think that's it. Hello, this is a tutorial. I like to talk about various way you can set up the widget interaction. I will start with something really basic and also show you a few old tutorials associated with the widget setup. So the first, a very common way to do the widget is the 2D screen overlay. This is very common in the video game. If you have an app running on the PC or desktop, and you have the devices such as mouse, keyboard, or gamepad on a computer screen, you can display the widget as a two-dimension screen overlay. And the interaction with the widget is basically through the mouse and or keyboard. You can move your mouse, you can see the cursor on the screen, so you can precisely select a button to click. So when you press and release the mouse left button, you can trigger the interactions. Right. So this is a very, very common PC workstation desktop-based VR. Okay. This is also very good if you have a super high resolution complicated scenarios. I would recommend this is approach to do with the PC VR with a widget 2D screen. A very similar approach is if you have a PCVR, but you can display this through the head-mount display. In that case, you probably either use a keyboard or you have a gamepad, right? So you can visualize. In this case, the rendering quality is not as high as the screen-based because you have to think about you have two cameras, right eye and the left eye. You have to render both. So some of the high-end features might have a latency. In this case, because you do not have a keyboard or mouse, right, to select the widget, click the button, you have to think about alternative ways. So that is in my old tutorial I proposed there are the two ways you can actually handle this through the motion controller. One is called 3D UI, another is a hard UI. This is kind of term I invented, and here I can show you this is the video. If I play, you can see by at the beginning I set up a kind of 3D widget, which is the actor. You have a widget embedded inside, then you can put this actor in any location, a fixed position. Then you are able to interact with the buttons through a laser. Okay, so this is called 3D widget. The HUD is relatively confusing. This is actually a term I borrowed from the 2D screen based. So the HUD is always in the middle of the screen. So in this case, you can use your the laser motion controller to actually click this button. So that is how you interact with this HUD. So that's covered in the old tutorial. Okay, so I don't really want to repeat. But I do want to mention is besides laser, this is called the interaction, right? How to make a selection. You can use laser with your motion controller to pick up, kind of behave similar like a cursor, right, over a mouse. You can also use an alternative way. This is called gaze. It's not really eye tracking. It's basically using the center screen as a way to you can kind of treating that center screen as your cursor. So if you move your head, right, relatively, you are able to select any point in a three-dimension space. So you can use a gaze to kind of behave like a cursor. Then when you overlay the gaze on top of the button, you can trigger the actions by using a gamepad, using a motion controller, right, front button, face button, side grip. So you can program anything you like to trigger. So that is the basic concept of using either motion controller plus laser, which is covered in my old tutorial here, or you can use a gaze. So today, before we move on to other options to do the widget, I like to cover this really quick. Just compare the gaze and the motion controller plus laser. I'm actually use the first person game mode as a demo. Okay, first person. So if you recall, this is a first person Pong search right here, which has come from the original 3D first person Pong. It has a weapon. I turned it off. Also, this is actually the place you can add a new widget interaction, which is the children of the first person camera. The way you can add widget interaction is just add, then you can type widget interaction. And here you have the options to set it up either as the word based or screen based. So if I'm using the word based, basically this is the traditional way. If I check show debugging, I give a right color, and then if I play, let me compile and play. Let me just play in the selected view. So you can see there is a right color laser, right, come from this first person Pong. And then I'm able to overlay with the button, and then I can use mouse click, right, to interact with the button. So that's how you do this kind of laser beam type of interaction. This will be the same as the motion controller. You can use motion controller, project this laser, then you can use a button on the front trigger to press. Right. So that's how this is done. In another way, you can actually switch from the word to center screen. I think I probably mentioned this before. If you do the center screen, it's not gonna render the lasers come out of the palm because it's always using the XY screen coordination, figure out what is the target point, or we call the aiming point. And then if I play, you can see the result is, in my opinion, this is better because you don't really see the big laser there. But whenever you overlay with the button, you'll see this red dot show up, right? Because this is only area the widget has certain collisions. It's able to interact with our center gaze. So this is the gaze based. So if I click, I can exactly doing the same thing. I can use my gaze to pick up any buttons on the widget, right? And then I can use the mouse left click to trigger the interaction. So I prefer this way for first person. I think this actually works a little bit better than the laser based. Okay, so that's going back to this. You know, we can use 3D UI, which is the one on the wall, right, fixed. Then we have a gaze, kind of behave like a cursor. Then we can trigger this either through a gamepad, a mouse click, or actually a trigger in a motion controller in the future. If you do want to, control this. I do want to mention is in some situation, maybe let me just show you really quick. You do have, I will show you a project we did at the end of last semester. So you can see this student is actually holding, he's using a PC VR, right? This is connected to a PC, and then he is using the motion controller. In this case, you could use motion controller to navigate through the space. It's equivalent to keyboard WASD, but also you can use your center gaze to pick up a button on the widget, and then you are able to click, use the front trigger, right? So if you want to do this type of thing, is really straightforward. So here in Unreal, and I think we covered this before about input, right? So in the game, in the input, right? And here you have the way to program the navigation. So here you can see I already have action mappings, and also I have my axis mapping. In the axis mapping, I have the functions called, I think it's called move forward. Yeah, move forward, backward, move right and left, right? So this used to programmed only for WASD, which is a keyboard you can navigate, but also you can add these new features, right? So this is a new mapping I added for Oculus Touch, right, left motion controller, and then using the thumbstick Y, which can push forward, backward. The same thing for move right and left, besides A and D, and the gamepad, right? And I added this Oculus Touch right and the left motion controller with the thumbstick Y. So Y-axis control the left or right. So this will be a really nice feature. You can definitely control the whole thing without using a keyboard. So that will be ideal in this kind of situation. So next, I will do a quick demo. You will see how this works. So in order to test this first-person demo, I'm going to just simply publish this into a Windows, right? Package the whole project into Windows. I'm just want to make sure the game mode is in a first-person BP. Okay. I probably want to, yeah, I was just testing this single scenario. I think that's good. So go ahead, publish to package. This is Windows. Then I will give a name. Let's say, so this is VR. I'll give 21 PC. This is Windows. Okay. So it's not like a standalone. So this is packaging now. This will take a little bit time. After 5 minutes, the package is done. Because it's the first time I'm doing the Windows packaging, that's the reason it's taking so long. Um, just want to double check is when I before I package, I just want to make sure I showed you in the VR plugins. I did checked the Steam VR and Oculus VR, so both of them are being checked. This is important because you do need this runtime either through Oculus or Steam be able to connect the VR display to the headset. Okay, so this is called runtime. Then I'm going to just make sure you activate the VR. So right now it's activated already with the Steam VR, and you can definitely see once I activate, then I'm able to go ahead. I can see my headset, my controllers. Then I'm going to the packaged file. Okay, so this is not a standalone. This is basically a PCVR. In the PCVR, by default, if I run, this is basically a screen-based first-person view, which you can see right here. Because I do have the VR headset connected, so it's automatically kick in. But just in case, if it's not kick in, you can just tap stereo on to turn on this display. Okay, so this is kind of like a manual way. I can also do stereo off, which will be turn off the VR display. So I will just type stereo on, turn on that. Then I'm going to look through this VR headset, and you can definitely see in my screen, and everything looks super high resolution because this is the PCVR. But also, not just by keyboard, I can also use my motion controller, push forward, backward, left, right. So this is much more convenient than just using the keyboard. I'm able to look around. So this is the Pong called first-person Pong, but I do mapped this motion controller to it. If I don't use motion controller, I can also use my keyboard. So that's no difference, just like a standard. Then I'm able to trigger this from either by use a mouse click, or I can use my front trigger click. I see this one is not working. Probably didn't map the right one. Where's the other controller? Okay, it's right here. Okay, probably I didn't map this correct. But anyhow, I think this is something I can fix later. Make sure it's being mapped. But now I can just use my mouse to click, which should work with my mouse. So I use my gaze as a cursor, and then I use my mouse left click to trigger. So there's multiple way you can definitely do this, and I can tell because it's a PCVR. So if I get closer, I see the resolution. Everything is super high poly. I turned off the bloom glowing effects, but it should work for the glowing. Of course, I'm not able to grab the pickup objects because that one is not programmed for the first-person Pong. So this is more like a PC for walkthrough. Okay. So I will exit. Here we go. So now I'm able to do a test. So I'm going to run this through the VR preview, and I'm gonna run this through selected viewport. Okay, so if I run that, so I'm able to see this environment directly through the VR preview, and also I'm able to use my the motion controller instead of the keyboard, so I can go forward, backward, left, and right. And meanwhile, if I go closer, I'm able to see the buttons, and then I'm going to use front trigger to navigate through this widget. So that's exactly the same as what we have done. Because I'm using the first person palm, so you may wondering where this widget interaction is. It's actually under the camera, uh, attached as the children of the camera. So that's it, how the interaction is working. Um, if I want to double check the BP first person, and you can see in the event graph, I do have this input action, primary action, which equals to mouse click, so which you can simulate the press as well as the mouse left button to press and release. Okay, and this primary action, if you recall, this is being covered in my last tutorial. So one of these primary actions, let me see, show you right here. I think it's in the action mapping, and here's the primary action. And here you can see the left and the right front trigger will be used to act as a primary action. But also this could be a left mouse button to press and release. That's how this first person view, I'm able to control everything through VR with. This one I want to talk quickly about the smartwatch widget style. This is actually quite popular. You can also call this as a pop-up menu. When you press a face button or the Oculus menu button, a widget will pop up and will allow you to make selections. So this is quite different from the 3D UI, which is a fixed location, or hard UI, which is take over a center portion of your screen. So I'd like to talk quickly how to do the smartwatch type of pop-up menu, pop-up UI widget. And also once it's pop up, you can have many different ways to interact with it, such as laser, or you can use a gaze to interact as well. In fact, the Unreal version 5.0 has a pretty nice built-in already, so we don't really have to build this from scratch. So I'm gonna show you really quick. If you switch to VR game mode and really just start to play in a VR preview or do a standalone game, so I will show you. Let's do a standalone. Okay. Then I'm going to just put my headset, and this is the standalone VR view. Because I'm running the Oculus Link, so you can see the controller actually looks like a Link controller, not the Quest 2 controller, but that's okay. All the function is the same. So here I'm able to navigate, I'm able to pick up objects, so that's all the same. But now if you actually press the knob button instead of push forward, you can actually pop up this, and then you can use the knob to make selections between these three menus. So you can do restart, which is actually loading this one, or you can go to open level, which is go to the actual next level. I can use a front trigger to press. I should be able to loading this next level. Then I can still doing. Oh, this level actually I didn't set up as a VR game mode. This is still the first person view mode. So let me cancel it really quick. Yeah, so let me set this back. Yeah, there's some kind of bugs with my version 5.0, so I'll usually crash the standalone. But anyway, let me go to the next map. I just want to change this really quick. So in my Hello World, right, I want to change this mode to VR game mode as well. Okay, so they both are VR game mode. Save all. Then I'm going to play a game. Okay, so this time I will start from the Hello World. Okay, all right. So now I'm in here. You can also use your left motion controller. I think this is the face button. If I press, I can see these three menus. I can go use my knob, move around to pick up. So if I go to the lobby, which is a restart front trigger, I should be able to load directly into the front. Okay. Oh, I think this is loading to the wrong file. Okay, because it is actually restart to the default map. But anyway, I think you got an idea. So let me exit, use console command, exit. Okay. Oh, pop up this again. Close without sending. Okay. So I will talk quickly how I actually programmed this. It's really straightforward. So first, if you go to the VR Pong, you can actually see this is called widget menu, and also you have this called. Let me change this to a bigger one. From size to medium. So you have this both widget menu as well as I think there's another one it's called menu. Okay, so let's talk briefly what these are doing. So first, if you start with the menu, right click and show the um, reference reference viewer, you can see this is actor which has a reference, right, has a connection directly into the VR Pong. So VR Pong is actually be able to press the left hand Oculus menu button or the right hand button to pop up this actor. And then this actor has this widget menu embedded to it. Right, so this is a place you can see three buttons. I think by default this is two button, but I reprogrammed. We have three button now. That's how it loaded. Okay, so we can take a quick look on the logic. So first VR Pong. If I'm go ahead browse to the VR Pong, let's just make sure we're docking this, right? And double click the VR Pong, you can see there's a bunch of script. One of these script, okay, is loading this toggle wheel, toggle menu. So I think this is grab, this is grab, this is teleport, this is a snap turn. Where is the toggle menu? Okay, grab right, trigger. Oh, here we go. Okay, right here. Input, right? So it's basically using this toggle left to open this toggle menu. And also it has a warning, the toggle right probably not working because the face button, this Oculus button is preserved for something else for Oculus system. So you can't really program this. But for the other hand, the left hand, you can actually program this menu. This is called Oculus menu to open. Okay, so that's a warning about. If you really look into this input action menu, this is called a menu toggle left. So if you go to the uh, settings, right, project settings, and then if you go to input, you should be able to see it. Right, so here it's in action mappings. There should be one called toggle right and toggle left. Okay, so this is how this will be triggered. So from the left left motion controller, this will be Oculus Touch, right? Left. Oh, sorry, this is trigger left. What I'm going to find is a toggle. Let me see. Trigger to right. Let's go back. That's strange. So this is called a manual toggle. Okay, so that's a name. Sorry. So manual toggle. Oh, here we go. Okay, manual toggle left, manual toggle right. Okay, so this is how this toggle manual will be triggered. So here you can see all class touch is using the left manual button to trigger, and for the right it doesn't have it because that button is reserved. Okay, so that is basically the trigger, uh, the input mapping. So now let's go back here. And in order to trigger this, you should also make sure you have this widget interaction. This is by default. You don't have to change anything. So this is under the right aim. This is under the left aim. And they both have this 3D widget. It has the word coordinates. Okay. There's no debugging show up. So that's the reason I think they will interact, but don't really show the the right color laser type of thing. Right. So this is all embedded. You don't have to change. You do notice here under my HMD, I do have this widget interaction. This is something I made by myself, and this one has a center screen which has the show debug. That's the reason why looks through my headset, I can see a red dot in the middle if I overlay with my buttons. So just another way. It works pretty well if you have like a fixed button like this way, right? So the middle screen have a gaze able to interact. The gaze will interact with it. So that's how I set up uh, the interaction. So now next thing I like to talk quickly is how you can customize this widget. So basically you have these three buttons, but if you add more, you can just right click, duplicate. It automatically give you this new one. So it's really nice. And then click the button, you are able to add a function to unclick, right? So that's how it do. I don't really have to do this. Let me undo. Since I already add a new one, it's called open level. And here you can see on click, I add this new function. It's called open new level, which is open hello world, right? So that's how it works. And also I like to add it. So on click restart menu, I don't want to load this template map. This is by default. So what I want is loading this back to, I think I'm using the word test 2, right? This should be the one I want to loading back. So Control C, copy that. Um, then I go back to the uh, menus. Just make sure when you restart, right? You are restart back to my test 02. That should be good. Also, I will keep the quit there. So compile, save. Um, that's it. So if I run again, I should be able to see the three button pop-up menu, right? So I can toggle. So this time I'm gonna use my left hand. I will using the all class menu click, right? So you have these three. So if I do want to jump quickly to the lobby, I can just use front trigger to restart, right? So it's loading the test 02, and then I can use the face Oculus system, the menu again, and then I can do open level. So this is jump to the hello world, right? And I can toggle. I can I can also using the fixed one. So here if I move forward by teleport, right? So here I can see back to lobby, right? So this is using my center gaze as a selection. Then I can use front trigger. So it's jumping back to 02, test 02. And again, if I want to use a toggle pop-up, I can just click, it's right there. And then I can use open level, which is go to the hello world. Right, so there's an alternative way you can really help you to navigate. I do feel like the pop-up menu would be a really convenient way if you don't want to navigate to the fixed 3D widget. You can just simply press the button and then you can pop it up, right? So you have many options you can pop up this. You can also program X, Y, or A, B to do the same thing. It's really up to you. And for the front trigger, this is programmed to act as a mouse click. So they have different functions. All right, I think that's it about how to do the smartwatch type of pop-up menus. This is all built into 5.0. I don't want to talk too much about the input control because 5.1 it actually has a better way to control the input user interface. So I will probably just wait to 5.1 and then introduce these new features to input control. But for now, if you do want to control, just go ahead using the project settings, and then you can program the mapping directly there. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's keep crashing, but anyhow, is for now just go ahead, program. In the future, if you want to do toggle left, you can program Oculus Touch. You can do X button, Y button. Um, it is all here. Okay, but just show you if you want to do it, add, and then you can do Oculus Touch. Then left, you can have other buttons, right? So you can have A and B. This is for right. For left, it's called X and Y, right? So this is called X and Y, right? I don't really want to do it because I think this is already redundant. There's too many, so I will go ahead, delete this one. So just click here, delete. All right, I think that's it. How to do the pop-up uh, menus with toggle with the about the hand tracking possibilities. In the Quest 2, it has a front camera. It's able to read your hand gestures, such as five finger, the pinch. So it can definitely replace the motion controller. You can see your hands by the camera, and also some gestures like pinch could equals to click. So that is another way I labeled here for the interaction for select, interaction for trigger. Okay. Overall, I think we covered a lot of different options to create a widget and make the widget interact with either mouse or the keyboard or the motion controllers or even the hand tracking in the future. In conclusion, I would say if you're running a PC VR, this whole project is rendered through the computer, then pushed into a headset. If you do have the devices like mouse and keyboard, this is really easy to program. The green line here represent the first half of the tutorial. I use the first person view, but the movement is controlled by the motion controllers, and the selection is made by gaze instead of mouse and keyboard. Personally, I do feel this is better. Gaze is a really good way to make selections, and the motion controller is easier than the keyboard. But if you do have a gamepad, which is really convenient, you can use gamepad. Gamepad is very smooth. If you turn around your head with the gamepad, it's not as fast as you AMD based. So it's up to you. I think there's many ways you can make the widget interact. Okay, I will publish this online, then you will have a reference how this different type of widget is able to integrate into the VR experience.